What would happen if a massive 7 or 8 magnitude earthquake struck without warning? And what if scientists had no way to stop the destruction? In today's explanation of Ashfall, we dive into a terrifying chain of events that will genuinely leave you shaken. The movie opens with a South Korean military unit carefully defusing an old, unexploded bomb. This dates back to the aftermath of the 1953 Korean War, a brutal conflict between North and South Korea that left behind countless deadly remnants scattered across the land. Even decades later, live explosives are still occasionally discovered and must be neutralized. Leading this operation is Special Forces Captain Jo In-chang, who successfully helps his team disarm the device. Meanwhile, his pregnant wife, Choi Ji-young, is at a medical checkup. Because In-chang is constantly tied up with his military duties, he rarely has time for her, and once again, he misses an important moment. Hurt and frustrated, Ji-young keeps her distance when he calls her on his way home. He eagerly asks whether their unborn baby is a boy or a girl, but she reminds him that he's always busy with work and refuses to tell him over the phone. After he sincerely apologizes, she softens slightly and tells him they'll talk about it when he gets home. Unable to wait any longer, In-chang speeds toward home, desperate to reach his wife. But while he's driving, a massive 7.8 magnitude earthquake slams into the city. The ground violently convulses, and within seconds, towering skyscrapers crumble like houses of cards. Massive cracks split open across the streets, swallowing cars and debris. In-chang floors the accelerator, trying to outrun the chaos, as hundreds of terrified civilians scatter in every direction. Buildings collapse around him, raining concrete and glass onto the roads. He manages to push forward for a while, but suddenly his car is hit hard by another vehicle. Even after regaining control, he finds the streets completely blocked with rubble, leaving him no choice but to abandon the car and continue on foot. More than his own safety, he's consumed with fear for Ji-young. He has no idea whether their apartment building is still standing. As the disaster unfolds, news reports reveal that Mount Baekdu, the massive volcano on the border between China and North Korea, has erupted violently. Scientists confirm that the eruption triggered the devastating quake. The destruction spreads across Seoul, Pyongyang, and even parts of China. But the nightmare isn't over. The quake was only a foreshock, and experts warn that a far stronger aftershock could follow. Combined with the ongoing volcanic eruption, the damage could multiply catastrophically. In response to the escalating crisis, the United States orders all American citizens to evacuate South Korea immediately. Next, we're introduced to Professor Kang, a geologist who had studied Mount Baekdu 3 years earlier and publicly warned that the volcano posed a serious future threat. At the time, no one took him seriously. But now, with half the city reduced to rubble, the president's secretary seeks him out. Kang initially refuses to help, saying he's done trying to convince people, and, as an American citizen, he's preparing to leave the country. Secretary John urgently pleads with him, asking for just 3 hours of his time, explaining that no one knows how powerful the main shock could be. If the eruption continues unchecked, the remaining half of the city could be completely destroyed. Kang finally agrees and is taken to a high-level emergency meeting attended by the South Korean president and top government officials. An officer begins by briefing the room. The volcano has 4 magma chambers, and each one is expected to erupt in sequence. The first eruption triggered the 7.8 magnitude quake they just survived. The next 2 eruptions may cause less damage, but the final eruption is projected to be catastrophic, potentially generating an 8.0 magnitude earthquake powerful enough to devastate half of South Korea. After hearing the assessment, Secretary John asks Professor Kang to explain his original research and what, if anything, can be done to stop what's coming. Professor Kang explains that based on 3 years of research, he has developed a possible way to stop the eruption, but it would require detonating a 600 kiloton explosion inside abandoned mines near Mount Baekdu. The blast would trigger a controlled collapse, relieving pressure in the volcano's magma chambers and potentially preventing the final catastrophic eruption. However, the only way to generate that level of force is with a nuclear weapon, meaning they would have to detonate a nuclear device dangerously close to the Chinese border. The proposal shocks everyone in the room and is immediately dismissed as reckless. Yet after the meeting ends, the president privately summons Kang and reveals he's willing to take the risk for the sake of the country. Kang admits the plan is far from guaranteed. Computer simulations show only a 48% chance of success. Even so, the president authorizes him to move forward. There's one major problem. South Korea doesn't possess nuclear weapons, so they devise an almost unthinkable plan to secretly obtain uranium from one of North Korea's nuclear missiles. North Korea currently has 6 such missiles, and following a recent peace agreement with the United States, is in the process of handing them over. The idea is to intercept one of those missiles and extract the uranium before the transfer is completed. If they're caught, it could spark international chaos, putting them at odds with both allies and enemies. To carry out this covert mission, a special forces unit is assembled, and the captain leading that team is none other than Zhou Inchang. Army officials promise Inchang that his pregnant wife will be evacuated safely alongside American citizens, giving him the reassurance he needs to accept the mission. Thinking of Ji Young and their unborn child, he agrees. When he returns home, he tells her he's being deployed but doesn't reveal the location or details because deep down, he knows this is the kind of mission he might not come back from. After saying a quiet goodbye, he prepares to fulfill his duty. Before departure, a colonel briefs the team. Once inside North Korea, they'll be assisted by a spy named Lee, who works within the North Korean embassy connected to China. Lee will help them secure the uranium from one of the missiles. After extracting the core material and detonator components, they'll assemble a nuclear device. Near Mount Baekdu, North Korea has several covert mines, and in one of those shafts they plan to plant and trigger the bomb. The explosion should collapse the surrounding rock and seal the volcano's final magma chamber. With the operation set, the Special Forces unit boards a plane bound for North Korea. But mid-flight, disaster strikes. The aircraft's engine fails because it's overloaded beyond capacity. To avoid a fatal crash, the team is forced to jump out. After landing by parachute, the colonel orders Inchang to retrieve a black bag still inside the failing plane, explaining that it contains the critical map needed to locate the uranium. Without hesitation, Inchang risks his life and runs back toward the crippled aircraft to secure the bag. Some of the men who couldn't jump in time die in the crash, and Inchang pulls the black bag from among the wreckage and bodies. Moments later, leaking fuel ignites and a massive explosion tears through the plane, but he and the surviving team barely escape by diving clear. He removes the map from the bag and slips it into his wallet for safekeeping before they head toward a prison in Pyongyang, where the spy, Lee, is being held. After arriving, the Special Forces unit breaks him out, but once freed, Lee's behavior is erratic and unsettling. When he hears they plan to steal uranium from a nuclear missile, he bursts into manic laughter. He asks to clean up, and surprisingly, they allow it. After shaving and cutting his hair, he emerges looking like a completely different person. He calmly removes a GPS tracker that had been embedded behind his head, revealing just how closely he'd been monitored. Then it becomes clear he has already lifted Inchang's wallet without anyone noticing. He studies the map inside, memorizes it, then shreds it into tiny pieces and literally swallows them, proving he's either brilliant, unhinged, or both. The team sets off with him to retrieve the uranium, and along the way Inchang suddenly realizes his wallet is missing, meaning the mission map is gone. Panic sets in, but Lee coolly produces the wallet, having already committed the route to memory, making it clear they're now relying entirely on him. When Inchang checks his wallet and realizes the map is gone, Lee casually admits he already swallowed it, every detail now stored in his head. Some of the Special Forces soldiers immediately move to rough him up, but Lee insists he has the entire route memorized and is the only one who can lead them to the missile site. Reluctantly, they back off. Moments later, Lee says he needs a bathroom break, so Inchang assigns a soldier named Tae-ik to guard him while the rest wait in the vehicle. While outside, Lee asks Tae-ik for a lighter. After lighting his cigarette, he deliberately tosses the lighter aside. When Tae-ik bends down to pick it up, Lee suddenly punches him hard in the face. He has already slipped out of his handcuffs, knocks Tae-ik unconscious, and makes his escape. When too much time passes without their return, Inchang and the others go looking and find Tae-ik on the ground, confirming Lee has fled. They immediately begin searching the area. By then, Lee has already reached his apartment. Earlier during the drive, he had mentioned that his place overlooks a large statue of North Korea's leader. Spotting the monument, Inchang deduces the apartment must be nearby. After searching several surrounding buildings, they finally locate Lee, who is inside arguing heatedly with his wife. Lee even pulls a gun on his wife during the argument, but the moment he sees the Special Forces team storm in, he drops it. This time, without causing more trouble, he leads them to North Korea's nuclear facility, where 6 massive nuclear missiles are hidden. On the surface, the site looks like nothing more than an ordinary factory, but the missiles are stored deep underground in a secured bunker. To reach them, the team must get past heavy security. Fortunately, the recent earthquake has worked slightly in their favor. About half the guards have already abandoned their posts. Inchang considers eliminating the remaining guards with sniper fire to clear a path, but Lee warns that gunshots could alert the North Koreans and trigger reinforcements. Instead, he suggests disabling the factory's main generator. If they can cut the power, It will take time for the emergency systems to kick in, giving them a small window to extract the uranium. Following this plan, the team quietly infiltrates the facility. However, once inside, they're spotted, and an intense firefight erupts. The South Korean operatives take down several guards amid the chaos. Meanwhile, Lee hides behind a corner with one of the soldiers. Suddenly, he asks for the soldier's pistol, and then shoots him. Just then, 3 North Korean guards rush in. Thinking quickly, Lee claims he has killed the captain of the South Korean intruders. As the guards approach to inspect the supposed body, the dead soldier suddenly sits up, revealing it was all part of a setup. Taking advantage of the distraction, Lee shoots all 3 North Korean guards dead. It turns out he had staged the earlier shooting on purpose, knowing the soldier was wearing a bulletproof vest and would survive. Meanwhile, In Chang and the rest of the team successfully shut down the main generator. Switching to night vision goggles, they move through the dark facility and eliminate the remaining guards. With the upper level secured, Lee leads them to the underground tunnel, using a password he knows to unlock the elevator. Once they descend and open a reinforced door, they finally come face to face with the hidden missiles. The team quickly gets to work dismantling one of them to extract the uranium core, first restraining Lee to prevent any more surprises. Carefully and methodically, they remove the uranium. But during the process, Lee notices the tunnel door beginning to seal shut. Mount Baekdu has erupted for a second time, triggering another violent earthquake that shakes both Koreas. Managing to free himself, Lee wedges a drum in the doorway to stop it from closing completely, then slips away unnoticed. Moments later, he receives a phone call. A man tells him that if he hands over the uranium, his daughter will be released. It's revealed that a Chinese criminal gang has kidnapped her, which explains Lee's erratic behavior from the beginning. They want the uranium in exchange for her life, and Lee has no real choice but to listen. Meanwhile, the Special Forces team successfully secures the uranium and necessary components, assembling a functional nuclear device on site. But once inside the elevator, they realize they have no clear way back up, until Lee suddenly activates it from above and brings it to the surface. With the bomb ready, they prepare to retreat, and In Chang presses Lee for the remaining route details. Out of nowhere, gunfire erupts. As they return fire, several team members are killed. The attackers turn out to be U.S. Army soldiers, there to collect North Korea's nuclear missiles under a recent agreement. Seeing the uranium being stolen, they engage immediately. Equipped with advanced heat detection systems, the Americans begin picking off the South Koreans with precision. In the chaos, In Chang dives beneath a truck and punctures its fuel tank. With help from his teammate Min, they ignite the leaking fuel, creating a massive blaze that disrupts the heat sensors. Using the cover of flames, Lee and In Chang escape with the bomb. But once inside the vehicle, Lee suddenly stuns In Chang with a taser, knocking him unconscious. He intends to hand the uranium over to the Chinese gang to save his daughter. At the same time, Mount Baekdu's second eruption triggers a massive tsunami, racing toward the coast as Ji-young heads to the port to evacuate with American civilians. On her way to the port, Ji-young is caught in the incoming tsunami. Another vehicle slams into hers, jamming the door shut. As the water rises, she struggles free and dives into the surging waves, fighting to stay afloat. Meanwhile, after running multiple simulations, Professor Kang discovers a critical breakthrough. Detonating the device in mine number 7 near Mount Baekdu would dramatically increase their chances of success. But before the plan can move forward, U.S. forces take control of the operation, refusing to allow a nuclear explosion so close to the Chinese border. Frustrated and sidelined, Kang prepares to evacuate with American citizens despite Secretary John urging him to find another solution. Elsewhere, In Chang regains consciousness to find himself handcuffed in the back of the vehicle. Lee tells him he's delivering the uranium to the Chinese gang, who will decide both their fates. After driving for a while, Lee pulls over for a break, giving In Chang just enough time to pry open his cuffs using a bullet casing. Lee catches on at the last second, but In Chang quickly swallows the GPS tracker, ensuring his team can trace his location. Furious, Lee attacks him, but In Chang shoves him aside, jumps into the driver's seat, and speeds off. The two fight violently inside the moving vehicle until it loses control and crashes deep into the forest. After the crash, the vehicle plunges from a steep height and slams into a tree, leaving both men badly injured. Even then, In Chang tries to use a stun gun on Lee, but the shock backfires, and they both collapse, barely conscious. Meanwhile, Professor Kang is traveling by bus with other American evacuees toward the port when Ji-young suddenly boards. She has somehow survived the tsunami. Shaken by everything she's witnessed, she breaks down in tears while sitting beside Kang. He quietly offers her a tissue, When she asks if he's Korean, Kang identifies himself as American and claims he doesn't even speak Korean. At the port, Kang is allowed to board the evacuation ship after presenting his US passport, but Ji-young is denied entry because she holds a Korean passport. Kang tries to explain her medical condition to the American soldiers, but they refuse to make an exception. Ji-young chooses to stay behind, believing In-chang will come for her as he promised they would reach safety together. But In-chang is still stranded in North Korea. Back in the forest, both men regain consciousness, and Lee immediately restrains In-chang again. Desperate and emotional, In-chang pleads with him, saying he has a pregnant wife who needs him and that he should be by her side during this critical time. He tells Lee that he's trapped here and may never even see his unborn child's face. The plea hits home. Lee has a daughter too, and everything he's done has been to save her. Softening slightly, the two move the bomb to a hidden location where the Chinese gang is supposed to meet them. Before the handoff can happen, however, US forces arrive and surround them, forcing both men to prepare to surrender. Suddenly, a bus barrels onto the scene, driven by Special Forces member Kim, who tracked In-chang using the GPS signal. In-chang and Lee jump aboard, and with Min's help they make a run for it as US soldiers pursue them in a hail of gunfire. Lee fires back, even blowing up one of the pursuing vehicles. In the middle of the chase, Mount Baekdu erupts for a third time, triggering another massive earthquake. The bridge ahead begins collapsing like dominoes, concrete shattering into pieces. A chunk of falling steel slams into the back of the bus, nearly knocking the bomb loose, but Lee and In-chang manage to hold it in place. As everything crumbles around them, Min pushes the bus forward through chaos, while the US convoy behind them becomes trapped on a bridge that is rapidly disintegrating. Despite Min's desperate driving, stalled vehicles ahead force them to a sudden stop. By sheer luck, the front section of the bridge is still intact, allowing them to escape with the bomb. At the Korean port, the earthquake sparks mass panic, and people rush the evacuation ships. US soldiers block Korean civilians from boarding, pushing them back, including Ji-young. This time, Professor Kang intervenes and pulls her aside. He tells her the painful truth. In-chang won't be coming, because he's trapped in North Korea. Disgusted by the US military's actions, Kang changes his mind about evacuating and decides to stay and help his own people. He contacts Secretary John, explaining that his earlier calculations were wrong. Based on the third eruption, the fourth and final blast will likely occur near mine number 8, not mine number 7 as previously believed. The Special Forces team had been ordered to plant the bomb at mine number 7, which now could doom the entire mission. Realizing the stakes, Jian begins accessing classified documents for deeper analysis. When US forces attempt to detain him, he narrowly escapes, only to be rescued by a team sent by the Korean president. Jian then rushes to meet Kang in person, and together, alongside Young Ju, they re-examine the data to correct the mission before it's too late. Meanwhile, In-chang and Lee head toward the rendezvous point to meet the Chinese gang, both men now aiming pistols at each other. In-chang finally tells Lee to take the bomb. His only wish was to keep Ji-young safe, and by now she's probably already boarded the evacuation ship. Hearing that, Lee slowly lowers his weapon, then shocks In-chang by handing the bomb back to him. He knows this choice could cost his daughter Eun-suk her life if the gang doesn't get the uranium, but he decides to risk everything for the sake of both Koreas. In-chang drives toward the mine, and before parting, Lee redraws the entire map from memory. Suddenly, Professor Kang calls. When Ji-young's voice comes through, In-chang is stunned. Kang pretends to be a commanding general, knowing In-chang will follow orders without hesitation, and urgently tells him the bomb must be planted at mine number 8, not mine number 7. Without wasting a second, In-chang turns the vehicle around. Meanwhile, Lee reaches a ruined village where the Chinese gang is supposed to meet him, but the earthquake has reduced it to rubble. There, he spots a young girl, his daughter. She recognizes him but says nothing, standing silently amid the destruction. She's so traumatized by everything that she's lost her ability to speak. Just then, the Chinese gang arrives. Their leader steps forward and Lee tells him the uranium is no longer in his possession, but if they let his daughter go, he'll bring it back. The leader responds by shooting him without hesitation and prepares to finish him off. Suddenly, US forces storm the area, believing the uranium is still with Lee. A fierce firefight erupts. In the middle of it, In-chang drives onto the scene. When the US soldiers spot the nuclear device in his vehicle, they immediately cease fire. The Chinese gang leader confronts him, and In-chang coolly tells him to take the uranium and leave. But when the leader inspects the bomb, he sees a timer counting down. Panic sets in. He demands In-chang shut it off, But once the trigger is armed, there's no stopping it. Realizing the blast is imminent, US forces retreat, and the gang scatters as well. It's In Chang's calculated move to clear the field. He tells Min to get Lee to a hospital, then resolves to plant the bomb himself inside the correct mine. The problem is, only Lee knows the precise location. Because he literally swallowed the map, Lee tells In Chang there's no way he can pull this off alone. Planting a nuclear device deep inside a collapsing mine is nearly impossible. So the two of them head out together, and before leaving, Lee shares a final emotional goodbye with his daughter. At the same time, Ji-young calls In Chang and makes him promise he'll come back safely. She now understands exactly what he's about to do. Moments after the call ends, she goes into labor. Kang and Secretary John rush her to a hospital, but even there the earthquake causes parts of the ceiling to cave in. Despite the chaos, the doctors push forward with the delivery. Meanwhile, In Chang and Lee reach the mountain as violent tremors shake the ground and fiery debris rains down from the erupting volcano. Fighting through the destruction, they finally reach the mine and begin pushing the bomb inside. Suddenly, the generator loses power, and a powerful jolt throws them back. The elevator they need to descend no longer works since it runs on that generator. In Chang decides to cut the elevator cable and rig a small explosive to drop it manually. Lee tells him to grab an extra rope. They'll need it to climb back up. But as In Chang turns to get it, Lee suddenly shuts the elevator door and reveals the truth. He doesn't have much time left anyway. Lee is already bleeding out from a gunshot wound, so he makes a brutal call. He'll take the elevator down alone. A fall from that height will probably kill him anyway, and he knows there may be no coming back. Even as In Chang pounds on the door, begging him to open it, Lee has made up his mind. Before sealing his fate, he makes In Chang promise to look after his daughter. Then he ignites the explosive, the cable snaps, and the elevator plummets straight into the depths of the mine. The impact leaves him even more severely injured, his body already weakened from the bullet wound. With no other option, In Chang sprints out of the mine and speeds away from the mountain, racing to put as much distance between himself and the blast zone as possible. Moments after the elevator crashes, the bomb's timer hits 0. The explosion is massive. Lee is instantly consumed. But because the detonation occurs deep underground, it collapses the volcano's pressure chamber beneath the mountain. That shockwave prevents a fourth catastrophic eruption and spares both North and South Korea from an even deadlier earthquake. The tremors triggered by the earlier eruptions suddenly come to a halt. In Chang manages to escape to safety, and honoring his promise, he takes Soon-young with him and becomes her guardian from that day forward. At the hospital, amid the chaos, Ji-young gives birth to a healthy baby boy. Once the tremors finally stop, Professor Kang realizes the worst is over and that the disaster has been contained. Against all odds, both North and South Korea are spared from total destruction. In the months that follow, the two nations set aside their hostility and work together to recover from the devastation, focusing on rebuilding shattered cities and restoring what was lost. Amid this fragile but powerful unity, In Chang is granted leave from the Special Forces, and life slowly begins to move forward. His newborn son grows stronger with each passing day, and true to his promise, he takes Soon-young under his care.